No one would ever believe that a homeless man would eventually shape the beauty industry and become one of the world's richest men, but that's what happened to John Paull DeJoria when he met John Paul Mitchell.
Paul was my free consultant when we were starting this thing, and I said to him, hey, this is ridiculous, let's just quit whatever we're doing and let's do it together.
Exactly.
Put full time into it.
Thank God we did that, huh?
Thank God we did it.
His rise to success is branded as the American dream, living life from rags to riches, a perfect example of what anyone can achieve if they put their mind to it. This is the story of John Paul Mitchell Systems, a revolutionary leader in the hair care industry, and how two men with a shared vision and passion for making people look and feel their best helped to create one of the most successful companies in the world. Mitchell was born in Scotland and spent his younger years in London, where his father held the position of chief engineer at Buckingham Palace. Mitchell chose a career in London that was very different from that of his father, becoming one of the most flamboyant hairdressers in the area. As a result of his training with the renowned Vidal Sassoon, Mitchell rose to fame as a hairdresser in London in the early 1960s and gained the respect of the swinging high society of the city. The dozens of touring clinics he ran helped propel himself to the fleeting top of the salon scene. Mitchell turned haircutting demonstrations into creative performances that thrilled and drew customers and branded him as a tireless showman. Mitchell was thoroughly unhappy with his own success by the mid-1970s, despite being, in his own words, one of the most recognizable hairstylists in the world. To escape the sparkle and fast speed of working as a hair artist, Mitchell fled into isolation. Life in the spotlight had displeased him, and he was totally burned out on the whole success trip. He made the decision to embrace a new way of thinking. He eagerly welcomed the new way of life, which one day would serve as the foundation for the very philosophy of John Paul Mitchell Systems. Mitchell relocated to Hawaii in 1975 in order to distance himself from the hairstyling crowd. There, he strove to develop a fresh outlook on life and a new direction for his future. When the hairdresser did accept visitors, Swami Muktananda, an Eastern mystic, was his preferred companion. For about a year, Mitchell recalled, I lived in a one-room beach cottage doing nothing but yoga, meditation, and vegetarianism. Hawaii healed me. While Mitchell was living life of a soul-searching recluse in the tropics, his future business partner was traveling a very different route. His life experiences would also have a big impact on John Paul Mitchell Systems' personality. John Paul Jones DeJoria spent his years desperately trying to climb the rungs of success and quite frequently losing his purchase. This contrasts with Mitchell's prolific rise to stardom and success during his years prior to the formation of John Paul Mitchell Systems. He had a challenging early life. His parents came to the United States as immigrants. His mother was a Greek immigrant and his father was an immigrant from Italy. They resided in Los Angeles where he was born, and he made an effort to help his family as much as he could when he was a child. DeJoria began selling Christmas cards and newspapers with his older brother when he was just 9 years old. However, his mother was unable to care for him and his brother when his parents divorced, so the boys were placed in a foster home. When he was older, he left the United States Navy in 1964 to enroll in dental school. However, when he was unable to raise the tuition money, his plans for dentistry school were abandoned, forcing him to choose a completely different career path. DeJoria started selling encyclopedias before switching to copy machines. His third month-long door-to-door sales job as a salesman centered on insurance. Then he started selling medical supplies, but nothing was working for the young DeJoria. He found work as a sales manager at Time Incorporated when he was 26 years old and ready to try his hand at the publishing industry. DeJoria's employment with Time was abruptly terminated when he told his superiors that raising commissions would allow him to spend less time managing his sales team and increase productivity in the office. DeJoria's selling career was at a crossroads after being forced to find a new job. DeJoria later said, I suppose the reason the jobs lasted such a short time was that I didn't like what I was selling. However, at his next job, he was introduced to things he did like to sell. Sales was the only constant in a career life that was otherwise chaotic, and it was here that Mithcell found success. DeJoria began working in the hair care industry. In 1971, DeJoria was able to arrange an interview at Redken Laboratories with the help of a friend who worked for a recruitment agency. Redken, a pioneer in shampoo distribution through hair salons, belongs to a corporate society catered to DeJoria's preferences. A friend of DeJoria said, "I saw all these salesmen in beautiful Italian suits, and I knew it was the place for John." DeJoria swiftly justified his buddy's judgment, quickly climbing to rank as one of Redken's best salespeople, making $1,000 in daily sales. DeJoria soared up the corporate ladder at Redken, becoming a sales manager within 6 months, and after 18 months was made national manager of the company's schools and training salons. DeJoria eventually ran into a brick wall though. They said I wasn't a businessman. DeJoria later explained that I had gone as far as I could. DeJoria remained in the beauty industry after leaving Redken, serving 2 more stints as a salesman for beauty product companies, with one job ending when he found himself in the odd position of making more money than the guy that owned the company. DeJoria reconnected with Mithcell while visiting Hawaii in 1980, since they already met 9 years ago. Each looking to move in a new direction, DeJoria and Mithcell decided to launch a firm together, with Mithcell cast as the hair products expert and DeJoria as the marketing specialist.
When we were starting this thing, and I said to him, "Hey, this is ridiculous, let's just quit whatever we're doing and let's do it together."
It's a show business industry, DeJoria remarked. The partners combined their funds to come up with $700, a pitiful figure to start a new business, but neither were discouraged by the small beginning. In reality, Mithcell and DeJoria were excited about the possibility of a fresh start and wished to build a company that was fundamentally different from all those already in existence. Mithcell and DeJoria established John Paull Mithcell Systems as a platform for expressing their distinct viewpoints and as a corporate megaphone for each to share his personal ideology. Any opportunity to save money was sought for and welcomed, given the difficult financial position Mithcell and DeJoria were in when they started their company. 2 cost-saving options in particular helped the company stand out in the years to come because it was necessary to launch the company for less than $1,000. First, the partners decided to use inexpensive white bottles with black lettering as their packaging.
It's a black and white bottle because that's all they could afford,
which saved them a significant sum of money and, as it turned out, worked well as a marketing strategy when the business was making more than $100 million in sales annually. Cleverly, Mithcell and DeJoria made the second financial choice, which allowed them to fulfill their entrepreneurial ambition quickly after developing their business strategy. They persuaded Star Laboratories Incorporated, a tiny Los Angeles-based manufacturer of skincare and hair products, to manufacture their goods instead of paying for the expense of a production plant. Mithcell and DeJoria were able to launch the John Paull Mithcell Systems line of goods before the end of 1980 by subcontracting production, freeing up much-needed funds for the creation of their shampoo and other hair care products. Every cent that could be saved by decreasing costs was used to create new goods, such as shampoo that contained the ginger herb awapuhi. John Paull Mithcell Systems shampoo immediately became a bestseller, therefore the investment reaped attractive returns. DeJoria used the strategy he had seen at Redken to market the business's goods, restricting sales of John Paull Mithcell Systems products to licensed salons. Initially, DeJoria stayed around after Mithcell finished his haircutting presentations in each salon, promising to stay put until every bottle of John Paull Mithcell Systems product had been sold. By moving between salons in this way, Mithcell and DeJoria toured all throughout Hawaii, enjoying great success and building a solid foundation for their budding business. The pair was prepared to move to the mainland, where sales of the company's hair care products would soar once they had successfully established themselves in Hawaii. The company's resounding first success turned conventional wisdom on its head. It's possible that traditional business leaders and industry analysts scoffed at the little, scrappy upstart emerging from Hawaii, but by the early 1980s, no one could ignore the company's explosive growth. This was even more true by the mid-1980s, as the company had expanded to China in late 1986, where John Paull Mitchell Systems products were first introduced. Being able to generate $5 million in sales per month while having a tiny staff and little expenses made John Paull Mitchell Systems a business phenomenon. With annual sales over $100 million, the business was placed 71st in Inc. magazine's top 500 firms in 1986. Despite this, the company's corporate payroll only had 27 employees. The 350 John Paull Mitchell Systems associates, hairstylists who promoted the company's products by giving demonstrations at beauty schools and hair shows, were the true human resources of the company, along with the 34 distributors dispersed throughout the United States and the 7 distributors operating overseas. By this time, Mitchell had relocated to Oahu in a semi-retired state and worked primarily from the porch over his hot tub. Despite the fact that the business bore his name, Mitchell was starting to take a backseat to DeJoria in terms of running the day-to-day operations. 2 years later, a personal tragedy made it clear who was in charge of John Paull Mitchell Systems. In 1989, Mitchell passed away following a pancreatic cancer diagnosis, depriving the business of one of its essential spiritual leaders. As the business entered the 1990s with DeJoria firmly in charge, the performance track by John Paull Mitchell Systems barely skipped a beat despite Mitchell's departure. DeJoria declared, "I am the American dream," proclaiming himself to be a living example of the classic rags to riches story. DeJoria had been living in a car before collaborating with Mitchell, but just 10 years later, he reigned over a phenomenally lucrative business that was bringing in more than $100 million annually. His association with Mitchell, whose household name allowed the company to advance swiftly, was responsible for much of his success in the 1980s, but DeJoria certainly deserves a lot of the credit. His diligent marketing efforts produced a steady, long-term revenue stream that served as the foundation for John Paull Mitchell Systems. The longevity of this framework would be proven by the business's ongoing success as the 1990s went on. By the late 1990s, as the company neared its 20th anniversary, John Paull Mitchell Systems continued to distinguish itself as a success story. With revenues reaching $150 million, the company reigned as a market leader, its 35 various products winning consumers over in 29 countries. DeJoria, who served as chairman and chief executive officer, was persuaded that he would never advertise the company's products at the traditional retail level. The three-stage distributor to salon to consumer marketing structure of the company was hailed as the secret to its success. Instead, as the business got ready for the 21st century, it looked to the 700 Paull Mitchell associate hairstylists it would rely on to propel the business forward. The company went through a difficult phase in 2020.
Saw its deadliest day from the coronavirus as the death toll jumped by more than 600 in 24 hours.
COVID-19 related social isolation restrictions forced the closure of barbershops and hair salons across the nation, and the business's sales plummeted. The business lost close to 60% of its earnings.
3 million
More than
announced.
6 million. I hope that's right.
DeJoria had to come up with a solution. He was determined to keep employment and salaries going while revenues were plummeting by putting $6 million each month of his own money into the firm to bridge the financial gap. It was a simple decision made in only 30 minutes, as DeJoria stated in an interview. Additionally, DeJoria gave partner salons over $4 million worth of free items that owners could transform into pure profit once business resumed, to assist them with financial strain caused by the shutdowns. DeJoria's success can be attributed to the three main principles he abides by in his life. He is always prepared for rejection, strives to have the best product on the market, and remains philanthropic. DeJoria stated in an interview that customers like to be involved with people and businesses that donate their time to help others, save the planet, and make a difference. By aligning himself with social responsibility, he creates a loyal customer base that contributes to his success. DeJoria's life is anything but easy. Before he became the success he is today, he was a homeless man who worked odd jobs to make ends meet. If there's a lesson we can take from DeJoria's road to success, is to stick to your gift. He knew he had a gift for selling excelling, which is why he always called quits, even when he was living out of his car, jumping from one job to another. But what's one thing that you're naturally good at? Tell us in the comments below. If this video inspired you to use your gift to create the life that you want, leave us a like to help the channel out. Also, click subscribe for more videos like this one, but in the meantime, see you in the next video.